All right, welcome everybody to your weekly Kubernetes community meeting. I will be your host today, George Castro. We have no demo today, but we're going to do a quick release status update with Jeff Sika from the release team. And then we're going to go into two SIG updates today. It's going to be SIG Scalability with Wojtek and SIG Network. And SIG Multicluster sends the regrets. They will be doing their update at a future date. And with that, we're going to move on to this week's release update. Jeff, take it away.
Hello, everyone. I'm here to give your lovely 1.16 release updates. So this week on Tuesday, we cut our release candidate and code thaw has occurred. So yay to that. The cherry pick deadline for 1.16 is today. So if you have something you need to cherry pick into 1.16, please get that in today, end of day. Otherwise, it is not going to be in the release. Everything is looking green, CI is looking great, so we are scheduled to release on Monday, September 16th, and it looks like we're going to meet that. But if not, we will be letting everyone know that things are delayed, but things are looking good. As for patch releases, September 13th is the cherry pick deadline for 1.13.11. 1.14.7 and 1.15.4, and they have target release dates of September 18th, which I have no idea what day that is, but it is someday next week. Just a reminder, all of these things, pending dates, everything we try to blast onto Kubernetes dev mailing list, and that is it for me. Does anyone have any questions? Going once, going twice. Happy 1.16 week before release thing. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions for release? Okay, Wojtek, if you're ready, you can go next.
Okay, sure. Let me share my screen.
No worries.
Can you see it now?
Yep, looking good.
Okay, so I'm Wojtek. I'm one of the chairs of SIG Scalability. So I will give a quick update of what happened in last quarter, last release, or this release actually, that is getting we are getting to the release, and what we are planning to do next. Obviously, feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. So what we did in last cycles, so there are like three main top or themes that we were focusing on. One was like extending Kubernetes scalability definition. Like we are basically Kubernetes scalability, we are defining Kubernetes scalability, or we are saying that the cluster scales if a certain set of SLOs is satisfied. So we defined in the previous quarters together with SIG networking for SLIs around networking. I should probably have put a link to those. I will add it after the meeting. And this quarter, we were basically working on implementing those and measuring those in tests. It's almost done, but it's not fully done yet. I will talk like what we are planning to do with it next in a couple of seconds. The second theme was like basically extending scalability testing or improving scalability testing in general. So one of the things that is happening as we speak is extending our test to exercise a couple more objects or a couple more Kubernetes concepts, like things that we didn't test at all before, like stateful sets or persistent volumes and stuff like that. We also, together with SIG Storage, extended or created a bunch of tests that are purely like storage related and measuring. We are mostly focused on like startup time of pods, but for, let's call them stateful pods. So those that are mounting PDs or other kind of volumes, or persistent disk or other kind of volumes. We are, in order to like save a lot of money, we are trying to migrate all our tests to private clusters so that not every node has a public IP address. That is like, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it translates to like hundreds, thousands of dollars per year, basically. So this is a lot of money to save, and we are very close to be done with that. I think we have only one test that is failing, and we know how to fix that. It's mostly a matter of fixing that, and we will be ready to switch to private clusters. We spend a lot of time with Golang folks because there seemed to be another regression in Go 1.13 that was just released, or performance regressions. We knew it before they released, like roughly 2 months before they released, and we consciously made this decision with them to release, and because we still don't fully understand the problem, but we are pretty close. I think, like, basically the last experiment from literally yesterday seems to be very promising. We are trying to confirm that that it's what exactly we need, but I believe like within hopefully week or 2 weeks we will have like a Go version or patch release version of Go 1.13 that we will be able to use. Yeah, and the third theme that we were working on is like basically improving the scalability per se, or like making the improvements and detecting bottlenecks and stuff like that. And there are a couple things here that are happening or happened. One was like working with etcd community to like release 3.4, which is like much better in terms of performance, especially like in the context when used with Kubernetes, but probably in other contexts too. We switched scheduler to new events API, which are going to solve some performance issues. We moved watch bookmarks to beta. We deprecated self-link, which may touch many of the SIGs because like self-link is like a field that is in every single API object. And we did a bunch of local improvements, like improvements in Tate Manager and a couple of others. Okay, what we are planning next, we didn't do any like planning, like official planning yet. So it's more like, I will be more talking at the level of like higher level themes. So from the theme of like extending scalability definition, we are going to finish implementing the SLIs that we have for networking and set up thresholds to make the SLOs from them and promote them to be like official ones on which we will be enforcing in our scalability test, and like those tests are in the end blocking Kubernetes releases. So so we will basically introduce those new SLOs. We are also planning to work with other SIGs to define more SLIs to measure more, to cover like broader area of Kubernetes with those SLOs. One thing that we would like to introduce in the area of governance is like some kind of scalability approval process. I was already discussing that with like a couple folks, and it's still unclear what exactly it will be. My main goal is to like make that as lightweight as possible, so that on one hand, like everyone will have to think about it. On the other hand, like the overhead from that will be really necessary will be minimal. So that's something we are going to think about it also. We are also going to work on like extending our scalability tests and performance tests to cover more concepts and introduce other types of tests like chaos testing of pathological scenarios and stuff like that. And a bunch of work in terms of like improvements and detecting more bottlenecks, which is mostly finishing what we are currently doing and like looking for more, which I don't have anything specific on my mind yet. Anything that affects other SIGs, I think there are like 3 main things here to mention. One is the scalability approval process that I just mentioned. Like once we figure out some proposal that we will think it makes sense, it may make sense, we will be looking for like actual cap owners, ideally new caps, so that we will, with whom we would like to like validate if that is really like lightweight process and if it really brings some value, both for the cap owners and for SIG scalability. So we will probably be looking for such people, but it's not something we are ready for yet. The other thing worth mentioning is like this self-link deprecation. Self-link it doesn't seem to be widely used. I believe like we figured out all the places, and it doesn't seem to be anything that is that this deprecation may cause problem. But if you believe you are depending on self-link and anything, like let us know. And the third thing, we probably will be trying, or we will try to work with other SIGs to extend the coverage of scalability SLIs and SLOs. Yeah, and that's roughly what I had. Like, here are 2 links with like issues where you can find issues if you want to contribute in the scalability area. If there isn't anything you are really interested in, but you want to do something, like feel free to also ping us or me personally on Slack. Yeah, and here are some links for Slack channel, mailing list, and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I had. Do you have any questions?
We have time for questions, and if you could Slack me the link to these slides, I can include them in the notes.
Sure.
Any questions before we move on to networking? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Before we move on, just a reminder that the code of conduct is in effect and that we are live streaming and recording to YouTube. And with that, SIG Network, you are up. Looks good.
Hello?
Yep.
Okay.
We hear you.
All right. Hi, I'm Bowie, and I'm giving the update for SIG Network. So we had 2 big features that came in this cycle on 1.16. So the first one is dual stack support. So now Kubernetes is done with phase 2. You can find the details in the KEP, but basically we made a lot of API and command line changes. In classic computer science fashion, much of this work was taking a singular thing and making it a plural. And of course, this results in a lot of changes. The other major thing that happened in 1.16 is the addition of a new discovery API. So one of the motivations for this new API is that the current endpoints API does not scale above a certain amount. We found around 1K, depends on your usage. But really, endpoint slice allows you to scale to massive services way beyond this. And actually, there's a blog post explaining the details in the 1.16 blog post. Important things for consumers of networking APIs is that as part of moving all of the APIs out of extensions v1 beta 1, now the things that are networking related have been moved out. So network policy and ingress have now been moved out of the networking API group. And please update your YAMLs, UYY. Because these things, I think in 1.16, network policy will stop being served. So that will just stop working. And then ingress will follow suit probably in 1.17. So please, or actually deprecation will in 1.17 and then stop being served sometime afterwards. So please update your configurations. Finally, we had a bunch of version updates and bug fixes. For example, services now have finalizers for the resources, various proxier fixes in IPVS, and we have a new core DNS version in this release. And many, many thanks to all the contributors this cycle. Awesome work, especially the heavy stuff like IPv6, and then all the bug fixes, of course. So kind of reviewing the major themes for 2019, we, at the beginning, I think January, we said we're going to look into Ingress L7 revamp. We're definitely doing dual stack. We're looking into topology, service endpoints revamp, Windows, and scalability. And we have made progress, although in 1.16, I don't think we got to a state of wrapping up in the GA for Ingress. Dual stack, awesome. Phase 2 is done. Onwards to the next 2 phases, I think, that still remain. We made progress in topology, but nothing in 1.16. And then we have made progress in scalability and endpoints with the new Discovery API and Windows support. It works. I think we went through all the tests and tried to figure out which ones were Windows applicable and which ones were not. Looking forward, the SIG has not done planning for 2020, but given the sort of conversations that have been on the SIG, 2 things pop out. One of them is that kubeproxy, thanks to Valerie for driving a lot of this, is kubeproxy componentization, which is taking kubeproxy, breaking it up into its constituent pieces. Some pieces, they actually don't interact with each other, but they're in the same repo, moving into a separate repo, and this will allow faster velocity and development on that front. And then we have a lot of conversations about networking and multi-cluster. So that one is an interesting one. We'll see what happens in 2020. In terms of work with other SIGs, I think definitely, well, it's ironic that Wojtek went before me, but we work a lot with SIG scalability for some of these things. And I think IPv6 probably, dual stack will have some impact on users in general because IP addresses are pernicious across all sorts of configurations. In terms of where to find us, that's the Zoom link, and we have meetings every Thursday at 2 p.m. PST. And then those are links to our Slack and our community pages. And that's it.
Any questions for networking? All right, great, thanks a lot. And if you're joining late, SIG multi-cluster, Paul sends his regrets. He won't be able to go today, so they'll go at a future date. Okay, moving on to announcements real quick. Election updates. The candidates' platforms have all been checked into GitHub. I put a link in the notes. Please feel free to read all their bios there to determine who you want to vote for. We will be kicking off the election next Wednesday, and I will be sending the status update mail to the Kubernetes dev mailing list. So make sure you do that. We have about a 2-week voting period where voting will be open. And in the status emails, you'll have the rest of the little schedule there of how the election is going to go. We're doing a call for demos for this meeting. We like to do a quick 10-minute demo at the beginning of the meeting. So if you're working on something cool, you want to do a demo, see the instructions at the top of the notes document for how to sign up. The Contributor Summit registration is live. This is the event that happens the day before KubeCon and Cloud Native Con that has a current contributor track and a new contributor track. Those registrations always sell out quickly, so we encourage you to sign up, and I've put the link there for you, and you can check out #contributor-summit on the Kubernetes Slack if you have questions about that. Just a note about this meeting, next week will be the release retrospective with the release team, so it's not going to be a normal meeting next week. It's all going to be about the release, and then we'll go back to the normal schedule. Quick announcements here, new users, I need your help on discuss.kubernetes.io, getting a ton of new users, asking a lot of questions. If you go in, you help out, you do something cool, I'll send you a Kubernetes t-shirt, it'll be great. And you can help me out by RTing the announcement to all that and helping spread the word through your social circles. I would appreciate that. In 2 weeks after the release retro, SIG CLI, Working Group Policy, and Working Group Component Standard will be giving their status, and Tim Pepper will be your host. This is the first time we're having work groups kind of give a status, so we're going to see how that works out. Quick shout-outs this week. This is the hash shout-out channels on the Kubernetes Slack. If you see someone doing something really great above and beyond the Call of Duty, feel free to mention them, and then we'll make sure they get a shout-out this week. So Vince would like to do a huge shout-out and thank you to Catherine Berry, Tim Hawking, and Jason DeTiberius for spending hours together to get Cluster API container build automation up and running. Zachary Sarah would like to shout out to June Yi for adding a helper script for localization teams to discover changes to source stocks between development branches. And we put the link to the pull request there. And Matthew X would like to shout out to Joe Beta, Brendan Burns, Tim Hawking, and Aparna for the nice TechCrunch panel session. And there's a little link to their YouTube video. And Ben the Elder, lastly, would like to close it out by shouting out to Jordan Liggett for reviewing all the things, because of course he is. Does anybody have any other announcements or things that they would like to tack on to the meeting? All right, awesome. And with that, we'll give you nearly 40 minutes. Thank you, SIG co-chairs, for your status updates. We always appreciate it. And we'll see everyone next time.
Thanks, George, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.